I ran as fast as I could. Behind me, the iron footsteps of those creepy robots could already be heard. Hurry up! The bunker is already close. Come on! And then a metal robo hand closed on my leg. It's over. I struggled, but suddenly my eyes began to close. It looked like I was injected with a sedative. I started to fall asleep. I felt so calm, and at the moment, I was flooded with memories of my parents. How I missed them now. Because they were no longer alive. They were scientists. My dad and mom gave me all their knowledge and developed my talent for chemistry. I didn't have any friends, so I spent all my free time with them. But soon, the planet was filled with wild rats. They were not afraid of people at all and openly attacked them. It was even impossible to walk freely in the streets. The government instructed my parents to get rid of the rodents, and my parents began to develop a virus that would deprive the rats of the ability to reproduce. They successfully managed, but conducting final testing, they revealed a side effect for people. Any infected woman most likely would no longer be able to give birth to a female child. This could lead to the extinction of humanity. My parents told everyone about it and wanted to stop the development, but President Evil did not listen to them in order to use the virus. Mom and Dad refused, but they knew that this would not stop the president and secretly hid me in a bunker to protect me from the effects of the virus. The virus was used, and the next day, when I was communicating with my parents via video link, the servants of the president came to them. After that, right before my eyes, the robot split mom and dad with a beam for insubordination. The servants got sight of me on the monitor screen and gave the president information about the surviving daughter of the scientists. I burst into tears. My parents were gone. I was all alone. I couldn't trust anyone else in this world. The location of my bunker was not determined. I was safe and I had everything I needed. In addition to the food, my parents left me a lot of books and a screen where the main news was broadcast. From them, I learned the virus had spread instantly and had already worked successfully on rodents. All the channels were talking about it. Gradually, the anger gave way to apathy. I lay in bed all day thinking about what had happened. One day, I learned from a regular news release that the virus still had a side effect that my parents had warned about. Not a single baby girl had been born in the last few weeks. But my parents did not have time to make a vaccine that would have saved the world from the virus. That day I couldn't sleep until late at night. I kept thinking, and at some point, I decided for myself that at any cost, I would finish the work of mom and dad. My love of chemistry would definitely help me. I spent days trying to figure out the formula, but every time it turned out that something was missing. I was desperate. Food supplies in the bunker began to run out. I knew I couldn't go out, but I couldn't go any further without water. Then I covered my face with a mask and carefully climbed out of the bunker into the street. Suddenly, on all the street screens, I saw a video with the president's disgusting face. He was talking about me. What? He said that he was looking for the daughter of the dead scientists who created the virus, the only girl who was not infected who could give birth to a girl and save humanity. There was a huge reward for my capture. I was taken aback. If I got caught, I definitely wouldn't be able to finish the vaccine. I ran back to the bunker, but suddenly I was seized by the iron hand of a robot. Apparently the mask had slipped off my face, so I fell into the hands of the president. I was distracted from my memories by the voice of President Evil, not from the screen this time. I woke up in a large office. I was surrounded by a ring of robot guards, and Hotly Evil was not far away. The robot guards helped me, and I listened with disgust to the president's speech about saving humanity and the need for me to become an incubator for birth. This was the only way to save the world from extinction. What? Was he going to force me to give birth to girls? Well, no. The president told me to think about it and quickly left. I stayed in the office, surrounded by the robots. I'll think about it, Mr. President, but only how to escape from here. I looked around. I got an idea. I told the robot I was thirsty, and when he turned away, I grabbed a chair and threw it at it. I immediately ran to the exit, and suddenly there was a dead end. There was only one door on the right, and I rushed in. That turned out to be a chemical laboratory. I saw a young guy in a lab coat, with a badge with some kind of emblem on his chest. Please save me, I whispered. The guy looked into my eyes in a strange way and showed me to get under his desk. I barely made it. Immediately, the robots barged in. They scanned the room with their beams but missed the table as the guy blocked it with himself. Nothing was found and the robots came out. As soon as the door closed, the guy threw me a cloak with a respirator, and when I put them on, he told me to follow him. Why was he helping me? The guy silently led me to the back door. And suddenly the scientist stammered, "You have Dad's eyes, don't you?" I was taken aback by the surprise. "Did you know my parents?" The boy nodded, embarrassed. His name was Frank. He said he was an intern in my parents' lab. And then he blurted out that my parents' case was alive as long as I was alive. I was wary. He took me outside and then handed me a piece of paper with an address on it, saying that I could contact him if I needed any help. No way, I could handle it all by myself. I pulled my hood up and ran to my bunker. I continued to work, but the experiment seemed to have reached a dead end. The formula was perfect, but in practice, the substances did not combine at all. And then it hit me. I needed a laser cannon, but it was only in the scientific center. How do I get there? I spent the whole day trying to work out a plan to get into the center, but it just didn't seem possible. And just as I was getting desperate, I suddenly remembered Frank. He had to have access to it. I thought about it. After what happened to my parents, I couldn't trust anyone else, but still Frank worked with them. And he helped me escape. So I went to the address on the piece of paper. I knocked gently on the door, but no one answered. What if this was a trap? There were robots everywhere, and if they saw me, I was dead. Then the door opened. Frank saw me, and then he invited me to come in. From the doorway, I blurted out that I needed a laser cannon for something important. "It's about my parents," I added, looking down. Then Frank nodded decisively and said that if I wanted to get a cannon, we would have to go right now. We got to some slums in the rain. Frank went to the door of the rickety house, but instead of ringing the doorbell, he tapped a tune. When the door opened, I saw a guy in a threadbare robe. He had a badge with an emblem on his chest, just like Frank had when I first saw him. And then it hit me. I heard from my parents about an underground society of scientists who opposed the president. It was their emblem. The guy led us into the living room of the house, converted into a laboratory, in the middle of which stood a homemade laser cannon. Then I noticed the other guys in the room. Wow, how many of them? I wanted to talk to them, but Frank said we might have been tracked. We had to leave. We took the cannon and carefully made our way to his house, constantly looking around. When I saw my face and the amount of the reward on the screens, something went cold inside. Frank seemed to sense it and put his arm around my shoulders. We were saying goodbye when Frank blurted out that he knew what I needed the cannon for. It looked like I'd made a lot of progress with the virus vaccine. I was taken aback by his question. "How did you know that?" Frank said he was secretly developing a vaccine himself, and suddenly he timidly suggested if I would like to continue working in his home laboratory. I hesitated again, but considering that Frank had already helped me several times, I agreed. The thought that we were now allies made me feel so warm. As soon as we got to Frank's house, we went straight to work. We heard on the news that President Evil had increased the search robot army and increased the reward for my capture. It was necessary to finish with the vaccine as soon as possible, but the laser cannon for some reason did not help with the formula. We worked at night and I was dozing off when I was startled awake by Frank's screams. What happened? Frank was quick to say that the substances had finally come together, but he also added that there was something missing from my formula. Don't hesitate, speak. But then Frank hesitated a little and blurted out that to finalize the vaccine, we need to combine our DNA. The DNA of a man and a woman. I was embarrassed, but Frank took my hand and told me that we would definitely succeed. This is the last leap. We can't stop now. I looked into his eyes and agreed. Yes, Frank. Let's do this and save the world in the name of the memory of my parents. While he was setting up all the devices, I couldn't find a place for myself, but now everything was ready. I held my breath, and Frank only squeezed my hand tightly to take the blood from my finger. We added drops of our blood to a test tube and pointed a laser at it. At that moment, a bright flash lit up the room. When my eyes adjusted to the light again, I saw Frank smiling. It worked! Without realizing it, I threw my arms around his neck. We saved the world, Frank. But suddenly the door opened, and the president appeared with a bunch of robots. They had already snapped the handcuffs on my wrists, and then the president turned to Frank and congratulated him on a good job. What? The president added that Frank did the right thing. What was he talking about? I felt like something had split inside. So Frank was working for the president all this time? I trusted you. How could you? But suddenly Frank said that it was time to end it and rushed to the laser cannon, and in a second, everything was plunged into darkness. I blacked out. I woke up in Frank's arms and he carried me outside. Let me go, you traitor! I shouted. but he just gave me a big hug. I didn't understand anything. Frank quietly said that at first, he tried to make a vaccine himself, but then he had to get involved in a dangerous double game, working for evil and collaborating with colleagues. But the vaccine didn't work, and when he met me and we continued to work together on the vaccine, he realized that there was still a chance to get it. After these events, President Evil claimed the salvation of the world for himself, but Frank and I were still given the title of heroes. The underground scientists, with our help, were no longer persecuted, and they were able to finally get out of their slums. Some of them even began to help get vaccinated in the help centers. Women began to give birth to girls again. Humanity will live, and Frank and I got married. By the way, now our DNA is combined not only in the vaccine. Soon we will have a daughter, and I realized that trust is the most valuable asset, because thanks to it, I not only saved the world, but also found a loving family. Did you like the video? Subscribe and like it. Support the channel. Thank you.